Hey, good morning, Al.
Morning.
Well, we're, I guess, day four into a war, and I think we've had at least four explanations for why we're in this. Has a case been made yet that satisfies you?
Well, I think it's an interesting thing because, one of the outcomes, which is the killing of the Ayatollah and most of the leadership, is probably a good outcome. But in terms of the explanation of what we went in for, uh, I have no clue, you know. And the thing that I think, what I think we ought to talk about, because I think it's really important in these situations, is when you're a president at war, which Trump is, the most important thing is your character. And if you think about leaders during wartime like FDR or Winston Churchill, who laid it on the line all the time, told our people, made the case for what they were doing, told their people exactly what was happening. And then the contrast of LBJ and Vietnam, of trying to really cover up a lot of the big problems we're having in the casualties. But with Trump, it's an all different level because that man has no character. He has no character. He lies every day, multiple times a day, and it's all about personal aggrandizement. So who knows what to believe? You
Yeah,
don't expect him
I
to.
think he's also, I think he's impetuous. I
Yeah,
think there is actually a case to be made, and Secretary of State Marco Rubio is doing, I think, as good a job as anybody. They're up on the Hill today talking
yeah,
about it, some of the reasons. As you say, some of the outcomes are favorable. They're dismantling the greatest terrorist regime, in on the globe, which has caused all kinds of disruption, threatens Americans, all those things. But it takes me back to when Iraq invaded Kuwait, and President George H.W. Bush said, "This will not stand." But he didn't feel compelled, 5 days later, to send the planes to start the bombing. He built a coalition. He built a coalition in the Middle East. He built the coalition in Europe. He had the Congress with him, and he had a very defined mission, which was accomplished in a remarkably short period of time. And he didn't allow for the
yeah.
expansion of that mission. Now, I'm not, like you say, I'm not sure what the rationale is for, and depending on what it is, how long it's going to take us to achieve the goal. It's just not the way to conduct it, even if we have outcomes that we can all be, supportive of and proud, certainly, of our troops for accomplishing.
If you go back through Trump's history, I mean, uh, he doesn't have much respect for the military warriors. You remember with John McCain, he said he wasn't a hero because he got shot down. Kelly's kid. I mean, I think those are the sort of his basic feelings and he, of course, never got near it because he had bone spurs. And, but to him, I mean, as I look at it, he's sort of like playing a video game. He sits back at Mar-a-Lago, uh, and pulls a few levers, and then the bombs go off. And then he's at a $1 million a plate fundraiser within 10 minutes. It's frightening to think. And then yesterday, I just caught part of it. I could not watch it. Hegseth doing the briefing. I mean, they just have a bunch of incompetence around, and it just scares you as to what could happen.
Yeah.
And the final thing that worries me, Trump's modus operandi is he always has to win the press that day. That is not a formula for long-term planning.
Yeah, no question about it. I think the thing that worries me, honestly, to raise a sensitive topic, it goes back to Iran Contra. If there's anything we learned in the Iran Contra episode, it is that you cannot trust Iranians who seemed well intentioned but have their own agenda. And the notion that, from the White House, they're directing factions inside Iran to do the things the White House wants done. To me, it just suggests they're ignoring history. This is a very difficult and complex situation on the ground with factions that are not going to get along. The question of what success looks like, in my mind, is still very much up in the air and to be determined. But I would be extremely surprised if some faction emerged that was highly responsive to the wishes of one Donald Trump. It's just so unlikely coming out of Iran.
I mean, you hope that there's a new regime in Iran and that we have stability in the region. But boy, that looks a very long way off.
Yeah.
I mean, when you cut off the heads and but you have all those tentacles that operate on their own, that's going to make it very difficult. Make the war more difficult than it might otherwise be. The Iranians, whether wisely or not, I think it's probably not wisely, have decided to go after all the Gulf states. Because the Gulf states might, in the end, have been their at least silent allies, but now they've made them combatants. And I also think that probably is going to be a formula for many more casualties, because I don't believe those states are prepared like Israel is to fight an air war.
No, and just a few radical people can perpetuate this. I think some are still looking for those moderate Iranians we heard about in the 1980s. They must be there somewhere. Hey, listen, before we get out of here, I want to get your take on Texas, too, because there's a primary in Texas today, a really interesting candidate emerging on the Democratic side, challenging candidates on the Republican side. But what do you think is going to happen today?
Well, I think there's a really interesting thing, because on both sides, there's a very good chance that the candidate that has the least chance of winning is going to be nominated, which is part of what's happened is our politics got more polarized and everything's decided in primaries. On the Republican side, the Attorney General, Paxton, looks like he may not win this outright because you have to have 50%, but he is certainly being a runoff. And Senator Cornyn, who's the number 2 Republican in the Senate, looks like he's in what your boss would call deep doo-doo. It looks very difficult for him to win, certainly tonight, and even in a runoff. On the Democratic side, we have a firebrand, Jasmine Crockett, running against a state representative, Rico, who is a lot of people think has a better chance of winning. But I really have no idea. The polls are just all over the place. One will have Crockett up by 10, another will have Tirico up by 10. And so I don't really have a feel, but I always get nervous in these primaries, because just as the Republicans found in 2022 when they nominated all these extreme election deniers, if we nominate Jasmine Crockett, she might be able to win against Paxton, who has been actually impeached by the Republican House. So he has limited support, but my guess is that if she wins the primary, Republicans will hold the seat.
Wasn't there also initially, at least, a big uptick in terms of people picking up Democratic ballots? Doesn't it look like this is a case of maybe seeing signs of more enthusiastic votes on the Democratic side than on the Republican side?
I think it is. I do believe there were more Democratic ballots cast early than Republicans. The question is, of course, whether that will carry through, because Republicans tend to vote more on election day. But the other thing is the amount has to be great. Trump won the state by 14 points or something like that. Democrats can do a lot better than Kamala Harris did and still fall short. I mean, I'm hoping this is a pickup. Tonight will really be the first really solid sign we get about whether the Senate is going to be possible or not.
Yeah. Well, I know we'll have a chance later this week to talk more about it, and we'll find out what happened in the election. Good to see you.
Great. Take care.
Okay.